Welcome. This is Cop Talk Uncuffed with your host, Jax and Ritz. Join us as we discuss current police issues and work on building solid community relationships. We will have news, interviews, answer questions, and more. You don't have to have a badge to listen. We're here for everyone. Now, here are your hosts.
In version 1.0, we talked about bad cops and how there are cops that legitimately go out and have bias or legitimately go out and do bad things to people, violate rights, lie under oath, falsify reports. And there's also cops that maybe are just not trained properly and make mistakes. Is it fair to put those two different types of police officers into the same category?
Yes.
Okay.
I think when you start segregating, and I think that one of the huge problems with there is that every state can govern its law enforcement, and essentially every department governs it. There's no standardized or unified, uniform rules, policies, and procedures, which, you can have a really good department with brass or people who are in charge that are on the money, everyone's held accountable, and then you have, the wild, wild west and everywhere in between. And I thought about this, and we were up quite late. So I went to bed. I didn't think about it. But the next day I was kind of fleshing through my head, knowing that we would probably have to do this over again, and what I said, and trying to, remember in the first part. And I think I did say bad cops. And the more I thought of it, I don't think there's bad cops. I don't think cops is their profession. They're bad people. Like, I think that if they're assholes as people, they're going to be assholes as cops.
I agree, yeah. I'm glad you said that.
I don't necessarily know, and the more I thought about that, and then I was talking to my husband, because he's, once again, the more politically correct sound, and I was like, and he kind of agreed with me. I'm like, I don't necessarily think there's bad cop. Like, I don't think you can be a bad cop and a good person. I think you're a shitty person, which makes you a shitty cop, or you're a good person that makes you, you may not be the best cop in the world, but you're not out there portraying any kind of bias or racist or doing things that would purposely, knowingly jeopardize someone's constitutional or statutory rights. But unfortunately, I don't think you can separate the two. You either are going to be, you need good people to be good cops, and you need to take the bad people, or who also happen to be the shitty cops, and get rid of them.
That's an awesome statement. I wasn't expecting that, and it's
well said.
That's another thing that I was surprised that was said, and we'll talk about the other one a little bit later, I think.
I don't even remember.
Okay, we'll have to refresh.
2.0 is a little bit groggy. 1.0 is groggy.
So in your experience, if you can give a percentage of how many bad cops that you've come across.
I know 3.
Okay.
Right. I can 3, and it's one of those things that you can't even say that you have to have constant exposure. Like, I've read police reports and said, what the F happened here? And then you talk to the police officer, and you talk to your clients, and you're like, oh, my client was an asshole. So, like, maybe it wasn't that bad. I think you can't just look at one incident, because there's so many variables. You're not there. Half the people, my husband's calling me. He wants dinner.
Can we take a break?
No,
okay.
He's fine. He can wait for dinner. You can see, like, you can't look at just one incident and say someone's a bad cop. You look at their history, and you really have to look at their arrest, what their, I want to say defendants, but what their arrestees say about them. There's some people that I'm looking at the reports for, and then people are like, the cop was so nice, and they're facing felonies, but they were treated with respect. They said it was, a crappy situation, but they were happy that they really felt like the cop respected them and explained them and gave them a smoke before they went to jail. That one last, just like, hey, you're doing your job. I messed up kind of thing. And then but when you see a pattern, and I'll tell you one thing, if they're a bad cop, and like I said, very, very few I would classify as just, you learn about them personally, they're crappy people personally, and you keep seeing the same kind of pattern of behavior, and it took me years to figure out, and now I see the names, and I know there's going to be problems. They're going to either do something that violates a constitutional or statutory right, or they're going to lie. And there's two kinds of bad cops. There's some that just do whatever they want, go like rogue, and there's some that kind of play by the book, but then they go and they lie on the stand, or they lie on their reports. We talked about this in the original. That's called a Brady cop, when there's some kind of, when an officer who's an officer of a court, a law enforcement officer, is by title, position, an officer of the court, which means that you have a duty and obligation to be truthful at all times. So it's not just because you're not sitting there with your hand on the Bible testimony. Your police reports are supposed to be truthful to the best of your recollection or knowledge. You can't purposely write something that didn't happen, say that something didn't happen, portray something that didn't happen, and then testify. All of those things can get you labeled. In Ohio, it's called Brady cop, and it's named after a case where an officer was then was found to be untruthful. They were able to prove that. And then in the state of Ohio, when you're you're basically worthless. They're basically tagged for the rest of your career that you cannot be trustworthy. So if you would go to trial, any kind of testimony, the judge at the end of the case would then give it's called a target, or would give a special jury instruction and say, you heard from so-and-so. So-and-so is labeled as an untruther or a Brady police officer. And what that means is that he had testified previously in another matter completely unrelated to this, and he was found to be untruthful. He purposely and knowingly misled or said something that was not accurate. And the jury knows that going back. And the whole thing is in the criminal justice system is that if the police officers need to testify to present evidence to get a conviction. So you have a sole officer who's a Brady cop and the only one there to arrest and no one else to cooperate it, and the judge is telling them this cop can't be considered to be truthful, and you're allowed to consider that. What good are you?
So I know I asked you this in the original version. If someone is deemed a Brady cop, should they be allowed to continue in law enforcement?
No, and I think they should be charged criminally.
Thanks for riding with Cop Talk Uncuffed. If you like the show, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Also subscribe and like our videos on YouTube. Let's partner up again next time. For now, we're out of service.